Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi, we're going to talk a little bit about the gifts in grief today. Wow.
Yeah, that's a hard one at the beginning to deal with. If someone early on had asked me what's the gift of Scott dying, I would have said there weren't any. Now that I'm further down the road, I can see the ones that I have.
Yeah, well, we've got some great guests to talk about it today. And first of all, we're going to talk to Julie Lange Groth. Hi, Julie.
Hi, good to be here.
It's so great to have you on the show today. And you are a very special person. Not only are you a bereaved parent, but you've gone on from that to become a shaman.
Wow.
Yes.
Which is kind of an amazing thing. And we're going to talk to you about some ideas. We're just a peek at this table. But we're going to talk to you about some ideas that you have for bereaved people to help them find the gifts in grief.
Yes.
And then we've got Bar Scott on. Hi, Bar.
Hi.
Hi, Bar.
Nice to be here.
So great to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
Bar is a fabulous singer-songwriter, and you're going to love her music at the end of the show because she's going to sing If There Is a Way. And she writes all this music, and she's fabulous.
Thank you very much.
And she does a lot of her book. She's written a book, The Present, and you've written a book also. And her book is about her son Forrest, who died of cancer. And we'll be talking about the gifts and grief with her. And Julie, your son died. What was his first name? I don't
Justin.
know. Oh, Justin. Yes, I do have it there. And Justin was a little older. He was 16?
Yes.
Yeah, and your son was just 2.
He was 2 when he was diagnosed, and 3.5 when he died.
And he died of cancer, and your son died of a sudden.
Yes, it was a sudden death. He was using nitrous oxide with some friends and suffocated.
Oh, my
wow.
goodness. My goodness.
16 years old.
And I remember that I read that was in your house, so
Yes.
it was even more,
Absolutely.
you know.
Yeah,
pulling
very
you.
guilt-inducing.
I didn't know
Yeah.
you could suffocate from that. That's what they give you at the dentist's office, right?
Yeah, it's called
That's what I
laughing gas,
thought.
and
Yeah.
so kids
I've had it
kind
before.
of tend to think that it's harmless.
I thought it was.
And you know, it's like the whippets that kids used to use at the concerts too. It's
Yeah.
the same stuff in there. What these boys were doing at the time was putting plastic bags over their head when they inhaled the gas to get more of a high.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he passed out with the bag over his head.
Oh, no.
Oh, my goodness. Wow, wow, incredible. Well, with that said, Bar, let's talk a little bit with you about your book and about the gifts in grief. Tell us what gifts are there in grief, and what have you found? How long has it been for you? I guess we should.
I was just saying to Anne, it's been 15 years, but it's really hard to believe that it's 15 years. It could have been yesterday, and it could have been 100 years ago. You know how that changes from day to day. There's so much. I feel like, first of all, he was my only child, so I felt so grateful to have a child, and so grateful to know that love and still know that love as dearly as I did when he was here. And I have a whole new life now. My marriage did not survive, and not specifically because of Forrest's death, but it was just one more reason why we knew we wanted to start again. And
Yeah, let me stop there.
Yeah,
That's
please.
so well put. I have to stop there because every so often, Heidi and I hear people say they divorced because of their
Right.
child. They would have stayed, together.
Right.
But she's putting a good light on it, isn't she?
Absolutely, because we don't know what would have happened, because we're not psychic. I mean, a lot of people that think, well, that was the only reason. They may have divorced eventually anyway. We don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
Yeah, in our case, I think it was really a question of, since it was our only child and we were then just the two of us,
Right.
we had options
Yeah.
because we had 40 years left possibly in our lives, and our lives were taking different directions, and there was a lot of love and a lot of caring, but just decided it was mutual, and we moved on. So now I'm married to a new man who I adore and who adores me, and we live in Colorado, and I have new friends, and I've written a book, and I have a whole new life. And it isn't to say that I'm glad it happened, but I'm really grateful for where I am now, and I'm grateful to have Forrest still very deeply in my life.
Right.
You know, I was reading a little bit of your book about how you thought you were going to be an athlete, and you certainly got that runner's body.
Yeah.
You were going to be an athlete, and you injured yourself, and so you had to go out of that athletic world of the whole thing that you thought you were going to be. And I was wondering, when you talked about that, you said that it taught you, you had to change your life.
Yeah.
Did you hearken back to that after your son's death?
Oh, that's a great question. Just as you're saying it, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I've morphed a few times. And so I haven't thought about it at all until this moment. But yeah, I did have to morph again, and it took a while. And I guess I hope I'll morph again in my life, because I had a therapist once who talked about, she had a metaphor for the changes that we go through, and she used the metaphor of a lobster. And when a lobster sheds its hard shell, for a few months or weeks, whatever it was, they're extremely vulnerable because they don't have that hard shell. But then they grow, and then they develop another hard shell, and then they lose that shell, and then they're vulnerable, and then they develop another hard shell. And she was talking to me as though I were in the shellless phase. And I love that metaphor, because what was important about it was the growth that was happening in between. And so that's how I feel about myself. I just feel like I'm getting stronger. And
I love that.
I do too. I love that you're constantly transforming, reinventing yourself, and moving into different chapters, because we aren't stagnant.
No.
And like you always say, Mom, we have to move into a new history. And it's
We're
hard
developing
sometimes.
new history. We've got all that history on the other side, and now we've got to develop a new history, new story.
Right. Who am I without Scott in my life? What does my new life look like? What does my new history look like? And at first, I was very resistant to move into that. But it's like the saying goes, let go or be dragged. You know, so once you lean into it more, you start to figure out, okay, this is who I am. I'm still a sister, and I still have a relationship with him, but it's just in a different way.
So what about your music? Did it change after his death? You decided after your injury that you were going to be a musician.
Yes, and that's a long time ago. That's 35, 30, 40 years ago. So that's been quite a while.
But you talk about it in the book. And
yes. I forgot your question already.
I was just saying, now as your music changed as a result of your son's death, and I know you said it wasn't always easy for you to write music.
No.
So you've got a lot of heart to write about, don't you, after a loss?
I think so. I've enjoyed that part. And in terms of how my music's changed, I've been thinking about it a lot recently, because I'm writing a new book now, and I just wrote a story about a guy that came to me after I finished an album called Parachute, which was the album that I wrote right after, the years that followed Forrest's death. And he came to me shortly after I put the album out, and he said, do you want to know what I think about your songs? And I was just like, I know this is going to hurt. And what he said was that he didn't think they were deep enough. He didn't feel the sadness enough. And it hurt my feelings. And I've been thinking about that since, because there was some truth to what he was saying. In other words, I wasn't ready to go deep enough.
It was a little too close?
Too soon, not too hard, whatever. And so I hope that even now, 15 years later, I'm working on an album that I hope will be a deeper expression of it, for my sake and for others that are. And so it's going to be more like the blues, really.
You're ready to go that deep?
I don't know. I'm working on it.
You'll see.
How about, talk about the song you're going to sing on the show at the end, If There Is a Way.
If There's a Way is a song that took several years to write, which is fairly common for me. I had a first line, and the line was, if there's a way to end these tears. And I wrote that right after this. That's why I'm writing this story, because I'm writing a book about how my songs developed. And that was the line that came after my friend suggested that I hadn't gone deep enough. So the next night I said, okay, I'm going deep. And I set up some candles, I pulled my guitar out, turned off the lights, and as soon as I started playing the guitar, I remembered being at Columbia Presbyterian here for our most difficult night.
Here in New York.
In New York, yes, in the ICU after liver resection, and I just started to weep. And then it took me 5 more years to write the lyrics. That's all I had, was that line. So that's the song that I'm singing at the end of the show, and it's basically a list of the things that I did to get out from under the grief. So some of it was long hikes in the mountains in the Catskills where I lived that wore me out, tired me out. I fell in love again. I exhausted all my money I recorded a live concert 4 months after he died with video and crazy, just crazy. Put it all on my credit card, whatever. Just because I was desperate to stay whole and
stay confident. I remember feeling like I had to stay confident. I was working and I needed, I call it brittle.
Yes, that's a great way of
trying to be
it.
so confident.
I love that Bar is here today in New York City singing this song because you've really come full circle in many ways.
I'm thinking about that.
Yeah.
Have I? I'm asking the question, have I? Yes, I'm, in fact, physically, yes. Coming back here, I did a lot of work with 9/11 kids whose parents were killed or lost a parent in 9/11 and spent a lot of days in that world here, and it's really good to be back here. I love
singing
New York.
the song, how
Singing
appropriate.
a song.
Yeah. Well, Julie, let's get to some of your things about finding gifts in loss and recovery. What's your thought about that?
I think that there are many, many gifts that come with the journey of grief. And as you pointed out, they don't always feel like gifts at the time. But if you grieve well, if you really take care of your grief, and I think that's very important, and so many people don't do that, but if you do, I think that you find yourself growing into somebody whose heart is bigger and deeper. You're able to have more empathy for others' suffering. You take that loss and all of the scar tissue that goes with it and everything that you've learned from taking that journey, and that becomes a part of who you are, and you are someone new. Someone who includes all of those things that you picked up on your journey of grief.
Well, Julie, one thing I'm really interested in, and I know Heidi is too, is on rituals and setting up special things. And I know that you've done something for us today, and I'm very interested in your shaman work and your drumming and all the fabulous things you're doing. Could you show us a little bit of your table and talk about that?
Sure, but if I may, I'd just like to explain a little bit about how I got into shamanism.
Good.
Really, as a result of my son's death. I feel like he actually kind of led me into it because I really didn't have any particular spiritual belief at the time.
And how long has it been?
It's 1993 is when he died. And yet I felt like during the immediate year afterwards that there were these invisible hands holding me up. And, on the days when I couldn't get out of bed, these invisible hands would hold me up and get me through the next day. And when I, didn't have the money that I needed to pay the mortgage, these invisible gifts would come to I was felt taken care of in a way that I couldn't explain. I've come to talk about it as grace, because I can't think of any other way to describe it. It's something that I didn't earn and didn't necessarily deserve, but it was just there for me.
I know. I think Barb probably identifies with that. I do too, and you probably do too, Heidi. Every so often, some weird thing would come. When you needed it, it would appear. I mean, dumb things. I remember once I was so depressed and sad, and the doorbell rang, and it was somebody delivering some furniture. Just things like that you'd have to write down to even remember. They're so small.
And it's really important to write it down, by the way.
Yeah, because you don't remember. All those tiny things.
Exactly. So through a strange series of synchronicities, I found my way into shamanism, which is it's an ancient practice. It's the oldest spiritual practice known to humankind. People who were writing on the walls in caves had their shamans. It was basically their medicine people. And so it's based on a strong connection with nature, and a belief that everything that exists is interconnected, and that everything has spirit, including us. We're spirits. This rattle has spirit, this shell has spirit. And so when you believe that, then you believe that you can communicate with everything that exists, because we all can do that on a spiritual level. Right. So I developed a practice of using the tools of shamanism to help other people who are grieving. And I found that so many people who have experienced a big loss, they either get stuck in it and can't seem to move through it, and so they're just suffering all the time, or there are others who just stuff that grief and don't let themselves feel it. And it may be that someone they love has died. It could be a miscarriage. It could be that they've developed a serious illness and it's taken away their ability to do the things they used to do, like when you couldn't play lacrosse anymore. That's a big loss. And so what I teach is that it's important to attend to your grief and to give it the attention that it needs, and to be with it so that you can move through it with intention and awareness, and that it really helps to keep you moving. So one of the things that I talk about in my book is to set sacred space somewhere in your home. You know, many people find great comfort in going to church, and that is a sacred space too. But unless you're going to go there every day, it's good to have sacred space right where you live, so that you can spend a little time every day checking in with yourself, seeing, well, where does my grief live in me today? Actually, you can tell in your body where that grief might be stuck. And you can really reflect on your feelings, and you can meditate a little bit. And so I like to say, make a sacred space, not a shrine. You know, it's not about the one you loved. It's about you honoring your grief. These are some things that you might put in your sacred space in your home. You know, you could have a picture of the person that you lost. This is my son Justin when he was 16. And a candle always kind of lifts your spirits to have the light of the candle. It's a metaphor for the light shining through the darkness. I have my journal here. Really important to keep your journal all the time, because you can track your progress through your grief just by looking at what you were thinking and feeling from one day to the next. This is sage, but you know, you could use incense, or you could use flowers, anything that has an aroma that helps you to just clear the heavy.
So you light that? And
you light that, yeah. It's kind of like, you know, when you went to church and they burned incense, it was a kind of a purification. And what you're asking is to just be purified of all the heavy energy that you're carrying around. And I put a rattle here because in my practice, I like to use the rattle. Here, let me just show you. You know, when you do that, it grounds you. Yeah. So it helps to make you feel stronger and more balanced. And I just suggest that anybody who's never tried it, when you feel really agitated or down, or you know, deep in grief, it is a wonderful rattle, isn't it? That when you rattle, you find that it really helps you to feel better. It helps to balance your energy.
Nice. All right, you want to try the rattle?
So if you like to meditate, try meditating to a rattle. Or just play the rattle, and you'll feel better. Or you can use a drum. I brought my drum here.
And you
I use that a lot.
circles too, right?
Yeah, drumming circles, right. And a lot of people like to go on journeys, which is, it's basically a meditation with a drum, because the rhythm really helps you to go more deep into your meditation. So we use the tools of shamanism to help people move through the grief process. And to really just take care of it.
I love that. Now, you both got books. And where do we get your book?
You can get it on Amazon.
Okay.
And I was going to add, do you mind if I just add?
No, I was going to ask you, probably good to add about that.
The ritual part, I started doing yoga with Forrest the week before he died. He came home from school and he said, "Can I show you a table?" And he did a table, yoga, a 3-year-old table. And then he died a week later. And I did yoga for, I still do, but what I found, and I'm curious whether you incorporate this, is I talked to him. I sang to him. I did all my kind of communicating with him at that time, and I'm wondering if you do that, or do
you communicate with him during your yoga practice?
Yes, I mean, yes, I would talk with him. I would just wonderful. Sort of say what I needed to say, or and I just communicate with him like if he were there. I mean, it wasn't a prayer necessarily. It was more of a talk. Just like hanging out with him. Yeah. And I found that just great.
Yoga's.
I still do actually.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yoga's been shown to really have some therapeutic aspects to it.
I would say that it saved my life.
Amygdala in the brain.
Yeah, I think it saved my emotional life.
Yeah, you did yoga too after Scott died.
Yeah, I did. I do yoga, and now it's a wonderful practice of going in and the inner meditation. So, did you you talk to him? Did you sing to him?
I do. I still do. Yeah.
Yeah. I was curious. Did you sing right away? I've known some people who have not been able to sing for a while.
No,
after.
I did.
You sang
did.
Right away.
I needed to right away. Yes. That need to be in the same place that Forrest was what took me there, and that's how I perceived it.
That's pretty incredible that he came home from school and said, "I want to show you this
table." I mean, it was hysterical. I mean, he held it for about half a second, but it worked. I mean, it was
something that connected with you with him. Yeah. I love that.
He was leaving you breadcrumbs.
Yeah, I think so. I really do. I mean, these are all little. Well, we were talking earlier. They're little things that happen, and you just say that's a miracle.
Yeah.
And grief and trauma gets trapped in the body.
It does.
So the yoga and the singing is helping us move through all this trauma.
Right.
Well, I was thinking when she was saying that her son, Forrest, brought home the yoga. Your son brought the drumming.
Absolutely. All 3 of my sons are musicians, and Justin was my youngest, and he was a drummer. And I had never played any instrument up to that point. I don't know how I had 3 sons who played, but so it was so interesting that after he died, my sons and their friends started meeting at our house, and they would bring their African drums. They had just gotten into African drumming. And they invited me to join them. And you know, you don't really have to know how to play anything to be in an African drumming circle. Yeah. And so that is what gradually led me to discover shamanism and this kind of drum. But it was, I think, a little bit of a breadcrumb from Justin.
Yeah. It's so wonderful that they invited you.
Yeah.
Really good.
I was so lucky.
Yeah.
Grief is kind of an initiation. Like in shamanic terms, people go through these initiations where they are delivered into the next big phase of their life, and it's kind of a rebirth. And when you think of a butterfly that starts out as a caterpillar, and then it spins its cocoon and it spends its time in there for a while, and it really breaks down into liquid. It loses all form. It's nothing but cells in that cocoon. And then gradually it rebuilds itself into something brand new. Yeah. And when it comes out, it's a butterfly. Yeah. And I feel like grief is like that. It really breaks us down into liquid.
It does indeed. It does indeed. Well, before we end the show, I want to make sure that people know about your books and where to get them. And Bar, you wrote The Present Giver.
Yes.
And you said people can get it on Amazon. And how about you've got a wonderful website. People can listen to your music.
Yep, they can on iTunes, barscott.com, and send me an email. I'd love to hear from people.
I'm going there.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to yours, too.
And Julie Lange Groth, and your book is called Healing What Grieves You. One of them, you've got 2 books. What's the other one?
Healing What Grieves You, 4 Steps to a Peaceful Heart is the new one. And the one before that is Life Between Falls, a travelogue through grief and the unexpected. And they're both on Amazon. And my website is julielangroth.com.
All right. Well, you guys have got such great information. It's going to be absolutely fantastic for everybody watching the show to go to your sites and get to know more about both of you, because you've got fabulous information and what great gifts you've given from your children. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Well, it's been wonderful having them on the show today, hasn't it?
It has. And they've got amazing information for us.
Yeah, really great. And we're going to look forward to hearing Bar Scott sing, and she is going to sing If There Is a Way. So we're excited about that. And we're going to go out of the show with Bar, and we want to thank you all for watching our show today. Please tell your friends and family about opentohope.com and let them come and join with us. And Heidi and I always want to remind you that if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.
If there's a way to end these tears so they won't fall forever after all years, or overflow and drown in all my dreams, I would catch them all, give them back to the sea to find a way. At dawn, I would lie down before an altar of stone and watch a songbird flying over the hill. I would wander high above the tree line to see a full moon rise. I'd linger for a little while to find a way. And I would give up everything I know. I would learn to love again, and I would empty every pocket I own. I would have the only ones I know to find a way. I would try to build a shelter without a